All right, so we're on the back side. We're going to take a look at what happens when your denominators don't match and how you add and subtract your rationals with that. So we have our steps over here. We're first going to find the least common denominator. That's what that LCD stands for, right? Multiply the fractions, top and bottom, by any missing factor. So kind of like the ones we did on the front side when they're missing. You got to multiply top and bottom. Don't forget that. Add or subtract the numerators. Don't forget to distribute any negatives. Doesn't work. And then we're going to simplify only the numerator. We don't want to simplify our denominator. We're always going to leave that in factored form unless we can simplify it at the very end if you have any common factors top to bottom. Okay, so let's take a look at our first one here. So we're going to find the sum. So you want to check to see if you can factor from the beginning. So obviously this is one term, we can't really factor it, so I'm going to go over here. We do have a common factor of 3 and x. So we can take those out. And it's going to look like that. So that's going to allow you to see what is missing in either denominator. Okay, so I'm going to start with my 9x squared. Okay, and I see that since it's 9x squared, we have a factor already of 3x in it, so I don't need to use that here. But I don't have the x plus 1, so I know that this fraction I need to multiply by x plus 1, top and bottom. And then this one, so we have the x plus 1, but we don't have the 9x squared. So you have to ask yourself, how does 3x become 9x squared? So you've got to multiply it by 3 and x. So this one here we're going to multiply by. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite it with those in the problem. So right here, we're going to start, make sure we have enough room, 7 and then 9x squared. And we said we're going to multiply top and bottom by x plus 1. Okay, my second one, so here, and so top and bottom by that 3x. Okay, so that gives us here. All right, so once you have that, and now only in the numerators, not the denominators, you're going to want to distribute, if you can, anything that can be multiplied out. So when I simplify this side, I'm going to get 7x plus 1, or excuse me, plus 7, because I'm going to multiply it to both. Make sure, distribute both. And then here I'm going to get 3x squared. And I'm going to combine them into 1, so I'm going to kind of multiply and add at the same time, because now my numerators can be put together because the denominators match. So you have your 9x squared. When I multiply here, I would have 9x squared, and then that x plus 1. Okay, so I'm going to rearrange this and make it so it's in standard form. So you get your 3x squared plus 7x plus 7. All that goes over 9x squared times x plus 1. Then you do want to double check and you want to ask yourself, since we do have a quadratic, 3 terms, can it be factored? Are there 2 numbers that multiply to 21 and add to 7? Well, there are not, because there's no combination that works. 21's only got a couple factors to it, 3 and 7, 1 and 21. So it doesn't work, so that's how you know you're done. And you can circle, move on. All right, so we're going to try this next one. So again, our first step, look at the denominators, and we're going to factor. So in order to find that LCD, you always have to have them in factored form. So 2 times x minus 1 here. Here we have a quadratic, so our 3 terms. Our a is 1, so it's a quick factor. You just need the 2 numbers that multiply to 3 and add to -4. And so those 2 numbers are -1 and -3. So this allows you to see what's missing in each one. So remember, you have to make a match. So when I look at my first set, this has an x minus 3, this does not. So I need to multiply by x minus 3. And then this one, I have the -1, I have the -3, I don't have the 2. So we have to multiply by 2, okay? So I'm going to write those. I'm going to write it underneath here so we have space, then I'll go over there. All right, so we have x plus 2 times x minus 3. Add the parentheses in because we're going to have to FOIL. And then in the denominator, looks like that. So there's our first fraction over here. That is a negative there, sorry. And then we're going to multiply it by 2. Okay, so it looks like that. So you can see we have different order, but they are the same denominator because it's a multiplication. They have all the same three factors. We have a 2, x minus 1, and an x minus 3. Okay, so for this one, it's kind of your choice. We are going to have to multiply it all out and then combine. We do want to watch this negative here. We're going to have to distribute to the terms that we get here. So I'm actually going to multiply out first, then combine the fractions together. So over here, you're going to get 4 terms on top because you're FOILing. So you get x squared minus 3x plus 2x minus 6. Leave the denominator in factored form. And then on top here, I'm going to get negative 4x minus 2. So I'm just going to take the 2, even though it's behind it, you still distribute here to here. Okay. And then again, your denominator, I can rearrange it now so they match. If that makes you feel better, you don't have to. And they look like that. Okay. So I'm going to kind of come up and go over here so I have more space. All right, so don't forget we are subtracting. So when I combine, see I've added parentheses here, I'm going to distribute. Okay, so I'm going to write it all out. One step I am going to do just to save space here is because these are on the same fraction, I'm going to add those to make it negative x. Okay, so let's go ahead and simplify that. So we get x squared minus x minus 6. Now when I distribute, it's up to you if you want to do it in this step or the next step. I'm going to write it out so you can see minus negative 4x minus 2. So there's my numerator. Denominator, we're going to leave in factored form. And then I'm going to just keep simplifying in my numerator here. So I'm just going to distribute and then combine like terms. That's going to become a positive 4x and a positive 2. All right, so I have some common factors I can put together. So I have a negative 1x and a 4x. That gives me a positive 3x. And then I have a negative 6 and a positive 2, so a minus 4. And that's my numerator. The denominator is still the same. And then you want to ask, do we have two numbers that multiply to negative 4 and add to 3? We do. And those two numbers, and again, your A is 1, that's why you can factor it quickly. So those two numbers, we can quickly do x minus 1, x plus 4, because those are the two numbers when you multiply give you negative 4. When you add them, they give you 3. You see a repeating factor. So we can go ahead and get rid of that. X plus 4 is left in the top. 2 times x minus 3 is left in the denominator. Now, big ideas will ask you for an excluded value. For this one, it's going to be the one that was factored out. So to find it, what x cannot equal, you take that factor, set it to 0, and x cannot equal positive 1, because it will make the factor that we took out equal to 0, okay? All right, so let's try our last one here. This one's a little bit easier to do. That one was kind of a lot of work, I know. So we have our first set already in factored form, nothing else we can do here. This one we do need to factor by multiplying a and c, so we want the two numbers, remember, that multiply to 6, negative 6, and add to negative 5. And those two numbers would be negative 6 and positive 1. So remember, you want to make your 4 terms Oops. Break up that middle term, group your first two, group the last two, take your GCF out of each one. One is the GCF when you take it out here. Take your repeating one out. Okay, and that's your denominator. So that's going to tell you, now we already have a 2x plus 1 here, so that means you only need to multiply this fraction by x minus 3. Okay. Okay. All right, so let me just kind of do that to get some space. So we have 3x over 2x plus 1 times that x minus 3. And this one, I don't need to do anything because it has the 2x plus 1 and the x minus 3. So we're good. So I'm going to multiply out here. Leave your denominator in factored form. Okay, so we're here. I'm just going to add. And again, we have a quadratic in the numerator, so you want to check. When I multiply a and c, we get 30. Your b value is -3. And you want to ask yourself, are there two numbers that multiply to 30 and add to -3? So go through those combinations. 1 and 30, no. 2 and 15 won't work. 5 and 6, no. I think that's it. Oh, no, that's it, right? So no. So it can't be factored. And there you go. That is your final form. Okay? All right, so the next set are just some problems for you to try, and then I posted the answers for those also. That's for today. And then if you do have any questions on those you try problems or anything else that, from today, let me know. If you're working on the big ideas and you have questions, you can do a couple things. You can take a picture of your work and you can email it to me, and then I can kind of explain through a video what you're doing wrong or where you need some help with, or you can come to my office hours. They will be 1:30 to 2:30. Let me double check that on the paper, daily. Okay? Have a good day.